My name is Moses Powell. I've been studying jiu-jitsu for the last 20 years. I'm the master Furendo Visitational. And at this particular time, I'm a senior master in the art of jiu-jitsu Te and jiu-jitsu Ryu.
.radio.net presents to you some of the most deadly jiu-jitsu masters in the world. Trained in the vicious urban inner-city street combat system of Sanuces Ryu Jiu-Jitsu, this art was created by the legendary Dr. Moses Powell, the father of American contemporary jiu-jitsu and the greatest martial artist of the 20th century. This network brings together 4 radio shows 4 nights a week, starting with Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Each one teach one, with the Pia Master himself, Grandmaster Urban Muhammad, and his protege, Professor Terrence Hale. Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Modern Combat Masters, hosted by the inheritor of GM Billy Davis Jiu-Jitsu, guru of his own Filipino system, and Sanuces Master, Grandmaster Daryl Sargent, and his co-host, Sifu Reseda de Jesus. Thursday nights at 9 p.m. is Professor Tom Curry's radio talk show. A Kenpo Master and Professor of Sanuces Ryu, 20 years law enforcement, senior tactical training instructor for intelligence retired, and author of the official Sanuces Ryu Jiu-Jitsu testing and training curriculum. And Friday nights at 8 p.m. is Making the Connection, hosted by the president of DocRadio.net, Grandmaster in the art of Sanuces Ryu and SOKE of Kuroshi Kaikan Martial Arts System, and president of the Family of Sanuces organization, SOKE HAISAN KALAEK, and his co-host, SHIHAN FAROUQ GIBBS. All of these shows can be linked to online by typing in docradio.net or listening live at the scheduled time by dialing 646-716-6825. DocRadio.net is also proud to present DocMagazine.net, the world's largest martial art magazine dedicated to Dr. Moses Powell, Sanuces Ryu Eye-to-Eye Jiu-Jitsu, Urban Tactical Street Self-Defense, and Streetology. Please join our Facebook group by typing in docradio.net and follow us on Twitter by typing docradio.net. Thank you for your support, and in the words of Doc, eye to eye, heart to heart, to the wall and back, us.
Good evening. This is on the Matt Series. Good evening. This is on the Matt Series for Furqan Shabazz, coming out of the Central Kai Dojo, Atlanta, Georgia, with my co-host, Shihan Salahuddin. Let me bring in my co-host. Shihan, how you doing tonight?
Oh, very good. How are you?
Pretty good, sir. Pretty good. Tonight we got Professor Jerry Denson, who's one of the pioneers out of the Miami, Florida Sanuces Ryu era. He's actually one of the original disciples of Doc from the Florida era, which was actually from my understanding, well, not even from my understanding, from the reality, the third evolution of Sanuces Ryu, which in my opinion is probably one of the most potent evolutions of Sanuces Ryu. Professor Jerry Denson is a very loyal disciple of Dr. Moses Powell, and he's been his dojo, and he's been doing Sanuces Ryu probably since the 1980, 1979. Well, so no further ado, let me bring in Professor Denson of the Sanuces Ryu system. Professor,
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Yeah.
Alaikum salam.
Yes, good. Everybody.
Yeah, we want to welcome you to the show, Professor.
Okay.
Yeah. How was class tonight? I know Shihan told me you had class tonight.
Oh yes, brother. We got through about an hour ago, but it was good. It was nice. But basically we going over a lot of the falls and rolls and getting the beginners connected.
Yeah, well,
turned out pretty good. Yeah.
Professor, you wrote an article back in 2000, November 12, 2000, was an article you wrote called by Professor Jerry Denson. The article was called Dr. Moses Powell, the Man, the Legend. Before I get into this article, I'm just going to just ask you a few questions, which was, what year did you meet Dr. Powell, and what was the martial arts scene like when Doc came to Florida, to Miami?
Well, when I met Dr. Powell, it was actually it was in January of 1981.
Mm-hmm.
It was the earlier part of the year, and a really close friend of mine. Matter of fact, a brother by the name of Raymond Walker. His name is Rockman, actually, and he came to me and he said, guess who's in town? And when he said Moses Powell, I said, well, brother, we got to go. So he actually he took me where he was, where he was teaching. And I got a chance to meet him and speak with him, and it was on from there.
Now, let me ask you, when Brother Rockmore came to you and told you that Doc was in town in '81, now, how did his reputation get to Florida back in '81? How did his rep get down there back in '81 or before '81 in the Florida area?
Well, brother, from my own personal experience, I used to do so much reading. So before I even met a lot of the guys that were basically into martial arts, I used to read about them. Yeah. And Dr. Powell was one of the ones that stood out in my mind, especially when I saw a demonstration of him. He was doing something in Madison Square Garden. Right. They had him highlighting that one finger roll. And when I saw that, I was man. That brought my enthusiasm up 10 notches. And basically before that, most martial artists they knew about Doc. They knew about him already from the 70s. Right. He had been through there before. It wasn't like he had never been to Florida, but when he decided to come down and stay, that was a blessing.
Hey, let me ask you, how did he when he finally made Florida his home? I guess this was around maybe 80, 81, 79. Mm-hmm. And when you befriended him, how did he adjust to the South Florida culture? Like what was that? Was it an easy adjustment coming from Brooklyn to Florida? Like what was that adjustment like from what you saw?
Well, his adjustment, brother, that seemed to be pretty easy, man. I mean, it didn't seem like he had any problem with that because, like I said, he had a lot of people that had heard about him. So there was a lot of people who already was basically endeared to him, couldn't wait to see him. Right. So we had a lot of people, man, that showed Doc a lot of love down in Florida, And I was one of them, so I was right up front. So basically, a lot of things that he was doing, his teachings, he was sharing that, spreading that, and everybody was just taking hold of it, man, and it just went from there. But that was an easy adjustment as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. The Florida man, I like my teacher Shihan. He's from that Miami, South Florida region, and that Florida flow, man, that Florida flavor, man. That's my personal favorite, man. I try to stay down biased, but I gotta just keep it real, man. The thing is, it seemed as though when Doc came to Florida, man, he had this blanket, none of that blanket. He had some killers, and one of those killer bees got out to Atlanta. Hey, let me ask you about that flow. Okay. When I look at a lot of the techniques, a lot of the Sanuces, you see a lot of kata, a lot of karate like that. But from what I'm seeing out that Miami flow, a lot of it was just a lot of jiu-jitsu, a lot of short, straight to the point movements. What can you categorize? What was the teachings like back then?
Well, the teachings, it was. How can I sum that up? Straight to the point.
Right.
It was straight to the point, brother, and basically a lot of the techniques that Doc was showing was basically getting it over with quick techniques. Okay? And his main thing was to always unbalance an opponent, not actually applying a whole lot of strength against strength, but using, leverage in his strikes. His use of chi or ki, whenever he was demonstrating, you can feel it. You can see him demonstrate that energy, that force. And so a lot of things he would teach, and he would just come from the philosophy of, and I'm sure a lot of people are still in tune with that, how can you teach a man how to be rigid when he must flow like a stream? So it was always about flowing, but never really putting down a karate or any other form, but he would always say, here's an alternative. Here's an alternative, because he was dealing with a lot of different people from a lot of different styles. So he never wanted to, to basically disrespect or make you uneasy, but to get you to see that, think about this way for a minute. And, I mean, that's what he did with me, and I became quite enthused with that, and I started changing the way I was training and trying to fit that in, because a lot of times, we find that a lot of things that we're doing, it can be done better, but we have to be able to open our minds to the possibility. And when we do that, then things start gelling, really.
Good, Professor.
So his teachings are great.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, because, especially when 14, 15 years old, I was already about, 6 feet, and I was already about 240 pounds. And the hardest thing for me, because I want to get in there and ground and pound and pick you up.
Right.
And but the thing what Doc said is that you ain't going to have all that strength for all your life.
Right.
He wanted me to use more techniques. So when my students ask me, why do I flow differently? I say, because, even at a young age, Doc had us flowing. We weren't all about, we weren't going in there and going in and smashing. We were stepping to the side and having, movements that had real technique and power behind them. So, yeah,
that's right.
So that's exactly how I remember it. He had enough punches and kickers in the dojo already, and he didn't have enough people that knew how to be fluid, how to move.
The flow, and just to give you, when you look at the Japanese terminology, there's a word. The word is nogari. And when you look up nogari, it means just nogari. It means to flow. Just like you were saying, being in the English term, it means to flow as like a stream, like water. So when I came across that, I said, nogari, to flow like water. And so that's the same thing Doc was teaching then, how to flow like water and not to be stagnant, you see. So I find that there's a great connection between the basic Japanese terminology is for those of us who was taking karate, and I'm quite sure there's a word for that in Korean and a word for that for those who are in the Chinese arts, But it always boiled down to doing that which was efficient.
Yes, sir.
Straight to the point and getting the job done. So Doc's, his movements and everything, I just tried to emulate him in every way I could. And that's, when I found, okay, this is working. This is working. So he taught us a lot, man, He had a good spirit, and, he just, every time he said something, brother, we were hanging on it. Believe me.
My next question is more or less like an analysis. As I was preparing for this interview, like I said, I'm very fascinated with that Miami flow. That Florida Miami, that South Florida flow is just a very nasty flow. And as I was researching, I discovered something tonight. Professor V, his teacher, had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 evolutions. He had the Vijitsu 55. He had then from there it evolved into Visitation Kanto. Then it evolved into Vijitsu Te. Then it evolved into Vijitsu 65. Then it evolved into Vijitsu Ru Jujitsu. And then the very last one was Rearnish Jitsu. But then, now check this out. Now, and that's Doc's teacher. So as you can see in Doc's teacher, he's evolving his system constantly. Now, in Doc, Doc left in Vijitsu 55. Now, Doc, it was in the Vijitsu 55 that Professor V said, you have surpassed me. I've taught you all you can go. So Doc, from Professor V's first creation, Vijitsu 55, Doc he mastered that. And then in his creation, he had Self-Defense Complete. After Self-Defense Complete, that was created in 1959. Then he created Sanuces Rule. Sanuces just came to him in a month in a dream, and that came to him like around the early 70s. Yeah. Then when he got to Florida, I felt that this is when, based on my knowledge, my interviews, based on me recreating him, I think in Florida is where he created and perfected what he called Sanuces Ada. And that Sanuces Ada probably started in that Florida era, and then it continued out in the 90s back in New York. And then so you had the Sanuces Ada. So the beginning part was Florida, the ending part was New York, and then after Sanuces Ada, you go into the Sanuces phase where he's on the cane, and then the last part of it is the Sanuces part when he's doing movements from the wheelchair. Before I continue, does that sound about accurate to you?
Yeah, no, you own it. You own it. Yes, you are.
Now, so one of the things that I noticed about Professor V was that Professor V never cared too much about mastering the entire art. All he cared about was mastering the principles of that art and taking what was useful from that art, and he would apply it to the creation of his Jiu-Jitsu creation. When you studied under Doc, did you see that same kind of principle in him?
Well, I did. I did, and you couldn't help but see it, because Doc. One thing about Doc, I find that he was a great believer in what we would call kinship. And kinship is a word that basically means divine enlightenment, or receiving a spiritual awakening from a divine source. Right. Because Doc would always say that, he learned a lot of things from Master V, but most of what he learned came from divine enlightenment. And so he would tell us that was the path that he was following. So anytime he was inspired to revolutionize his teachings, that's what he did based upon what he figured he was given from above. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
That's how he looked at it. So he said, well, listen, take what I give you today. He said, I'm going to give you the basics, and he said, you got to do what you can do with that. He would always say that. So take this and see what you can do with it. And that was one of his main principles of showing you basically the basic principles of what he was trying to put out. And he wanted you to use your own mind and your own ability to take it from there. So here's his thing about divine enlightenment. I could see that because when I researched back into history, I found that other teachers of ancient times, they believed in that also, and that the gods gave them greater power to create certain systems and do it differently from what other people were doing it.
Yes, sir.
And that's how I believe as far as Doc's system. That's how it came about. But I believe that each and every one of us, whomever the Creator decides to bless, can also come with that. You just have to give yourself to that higher force or that higher knowledge, that higher source. You see, so Doc was, he went through certain stages of evolution, and just like his instructor did. But I think that's basically us as human beings, because we're meant to do that. As babies, we're not meant to stay babies. We're not meant to keep crawling on the floor. We're meant to get up and walk, and later on run. And later on, run faster. So to me, it's just another way of saying that's human nature.
Professor, I think history will in terms of the Sanuces family, I think history, when it comes to you, I think history will remember you as probably the most loyal student to Dr. Moses Powell. Let me actually move into this article that you wrote. All right, so this article to the audience. By the way, I want to phone Professor Jerry Denson, a Sanuces Rule Master in the Miami area. If you want to call in, 619-996-1602. So moving into this article, you wrote this article. It was called Dr. Moses Powell, the Man, the Legend. You wrote it on November 12th, 2000. Before I read this article, how did this article come about, and kind of give us the history on this?
Well, actually, Doc had been saying to me, he said, I want you to write my life story. And he said that a few times, and I said, okay, let's start somewhere. Let's start with an article. So what I did, I put together a seminar that was held at the Shaolin Kung Fu Academy. Actually, Sifu John Venegas was my Kung Fu instructor. And so he welcomed Doc down, and we got together, and we had a very good seminar that day. And after the seminar, I was talking just regular talk. And so I said, well, Doc, let me sit down and do this, because at the time I was also the writer for the Karate Voice international newspaper. And, I had been writing for them for about 10 years. So I started putting different articles in that paper. So I said, well, let me do something on Doc and have this put in there also. And so we sat, and I asked him different questions, and he told me his thoughts on different things, and I just put it down, just like it is in the article.
Yes, sir. So let me. I'm just going to start reading. All right. So on November 12, 2000, a Jiu-Jitsu self-defense seminar was held at the Shaolin Kung Fu Academy in Miami, Florida. The host for that day was Sifu John Venegas, owner and operator of the academy. I, among others, were truly blessed to stand in the midst of one of the world's greatest Jiu-Jitsu instructors, Dr. Moses Powell. Prior to the seminar, I had the honor of interviewing Dr. Powell and gaining insight into his thoughts and feelings about the martial arts and life in general. Dr. Moses Powell was born in Norfolk, Virginia on January 13, 1941. Professor, I'm in the process of trying to correct this. I actually submitted an email to Webb. He actually was born in Barbados. This is no reflection on you. This is actually on every single document on the internet when it comes to him. It says Norfolk, Virginia, but he was actually born in Barbados. And if you get a chance to listen to the interview I did with Grandmaster Robert Crossan, I asked him on the air. He confirmed that, because they used to do a lot of seminars in the Caribbean, and I had just straight up asked him, and I said, I asked him, where was he born, and he said Barbados.
Well, that's a new one on me.
Yeah, and there was actually another professor when I did another interview with, I think it was Miss Penn, that you may want to check out. Another professor, Darryl Sargent, brought that to my attention too, that he was born in Barbados. Okay, but anyway, he was raised in Brooklyn, New York. He was born he probably was brought to Virginia, but his original birthplace was Barbados.
Because that's what he told me. The information we read now.
Yeah. And was raised in Brooklyn, New York. His first experience with the martial arts came by way of a Korean merchant marine. I asked Dr. Powell who taught him jiu-jitsu, and he responded by saying, I learned jiu-jitsu from the late Master V. May he rest in peace. Master V trained under Professor Akasaki. Before I continue, when he talked about Professor V, like how did he feel about Professor V from what you know about him?
Well, I tell you, brother, it's just like I guess you could say a son who feels about the father he loved. Mm-hmm. That's the way he felt about Master V. Mm-hmm. And he had nothing but good things to say about him. And when I got a chance to meet Master V, I understood why. Because he was truly a very humble man who was willing to teach you and explain things to you. And it just, you know, that's how he was. So Doc would always speak good of him, man. And, you know, even when he passed, you could see that Doc, he took it kind of hard, you know?
Yes, sir.
But he loved Master V, man, very much. Very much.
Okay, I'm going to keep on reading. It says, Dr. Powell further stated that although he learned a lot from Master V, most of what he teaches did not actually come from Master V. Quote, Dr. Powell said, I was with him for over 20 years, but much of what I teach is the result of inspiration or divine wisdom. For instance, Sanuces is not a word that you will find in a dictionary. It is a word that came to me through a dream. My own definition of Sanuces is simplicity and survival. It is a system that I founded in 1959, and it was also sanctioned by my own instructor, Master V. Talk about that. What do you think he's saying there in what I just read, his words there?
Well, what he's actually saying is that, as I told you before, he believes very much in divine enlightenment. He believed that there was a spiritual awakening from a divine source. And even though he had his teacher who taught him a lot of things, much of what he did have came from a higher source. And that's how Sanuces came into being, you know, even through the dream. But he said that actually Sanuces, in his own terms, the definition, it meant simplicity. You know, just straight to the point, you know, simple, basic. But he also spoke about, you know, having that information, that different information, man. The profoundness of knowledge that comes to him is like, I don't know, man. I guess it makes me think about sometimes maybe when you read about the history of religion and how certain men that God choose to teach them and to bless them with certain knowledge and wisdom, you know, and that may be on one level. And I think Doc had the opportunity to be blessed in a certain way on another level. And I think he realized that. And I had no reason to doubt it, because from a lot of things that he was doing, I say, yeah, this is deep. It's deep.
Let me ask you. I know that when Sanuces came to him, he was actually in the mosque, and this is actually what my SHIHAN taught me, was that he was in a mosque, and then it just came to him, Sanuces, and then he had his hand out, and in his hand he saw the pyramid. But let me ask you, when the mosque was at that time, was he in the nation or was he in Al-Islam at that point? He was in the nation, right?
Yeah, that was during that period of time. That was back then.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And you're in Al-Islam, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So am I. But I, you know, we both probably have a history coming from the nation. But I just want to build on that for a minute. You know, one thing that a lot of people don't talk about on the internet or whatever, they don't talk about the influence that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had on Dr. Moses Powell's mentality. You know, and I don't think that you cannot talk about that and not really understand his mentality. You know, because when you look back in the 70s and the 60s, and you had the Black Panther Party, you had the Nation of Islam, you had the pro-black, you had the Afro. You know, it was proud to be black. You know, I mean, you had that power movement. You know what I mean? And it was like anything that you did, anything that you touched, if you was a black man, you know what I'm saying? Like it made you want to be the master of what it is that you know that you was trying to do. I mean, can you talk to that a little bit? I mean, do you see the point what I'm saying about that influence on his art?
Well, I could see that, man. It's just like any man and his teacher. Right. Quite naturally, whatever he becomes, the influence of his teacher is going to be there. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you know, he spoke about things and basically principles of being independent and being a people who stood for what was right and to make a way for yourself. And we always had that understanding that back in those days we were saying that that the black man was God.
Right.
But I mean, back then a lot of things were said to keep you on your toes and enthusiastic about the mission. But we know that each and every one of us, we rely on the true God to become what we will. But we also have good teachers to influence us. And that is the way the Creator helps us to grow, by sending us good teachers, of people with a good message. And you can be sure, though, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he was a great influence in the life of Dr. Powell,
Right.
Definitely.
Right. Yeah, I read articles where Elijah Muhammad would send him. He was the only man that he would send Dr. Powell to make bank deposits for the entire Nation of Islam. Matter of fact, in the MGT, he was the only man that he would send over there to deal with them. I mean, it was like, and I'm gonna move on from that point, but I just think that maybe in the future I may try to do another show just on that. But I just think that that movement, that teaching, and specifically, and then also just that whole Black Power movement, I'm sure shaped that. I mean, because even if you look at Muhammad Ali, he was Cassius Clay, but then he became Muhammad Ali. When he came into that mindset, you had even off the ash. When he didn't come necessarily in Islam, but he did become part of that movement. And it just seemed as though a lot of brothers, or even when you remember the Olympics, back in the day in the Olympics, and those two brothers, they held their hand up and they had the gloves on.
Yeah, you definitely remember that.
Right, so he comes from all of that, So that was just interesting. I just wanted to get that on record. Okay. All right, so when I asked Dr. Powell what the greatest lesson he received from his teacher, he said humility. He further stated that Master V was a humble man. He was not self-serving or egotistical. He was for real. Talk about that. Was Dr. Powell a humble man? Although he's saying his teacher was humble, but was Dr. Powell a humble man?
Well, he was definitely humble, believe me. Yeah. And I believe that was probably something he got also from his teacher. Because humility, and he would say all the time, that humility was something every teacher needed, because without humility, he couldn't give proper teachings to his students.
Right.
Because if he taught students, and the only thing he showed them was arrogance and egoism, then he would be bringing up people in the wrong state of mind. So he said humility was one of the basically one of the most main important ingredients of any instructor, to be humble and to recognize his humble beginnings. So he used to say, recognize your humble beginnings, and yes, he was definitely humble, brother, and that's something I got from him, and to this day, that's a part of me.
Yeah, Professor, and it's funny, you ask him what's the greatest thing he got from his teacher, and he said humility. And that's something that maybe needs to be stressed back within we need to remember what Doc said, especially when it comes to humility. All of us within this.
All of us, brother. That's right.
That's right, and that fact, we've been doing the Bushido project, and that's basically what the Bushido project is all about. Making certain interviews that falls under virtues. Like this show actually falls under the Bushido project. Dr. Powell expanded on his answering by saying, the main characteristic of a true teacher is honesty. Next comes strong basics, history, and dedication to the arts. When he says a true teacher is honest, like what did he mean when he says the main characteristic of a true teacher is honesty? Like honest about what? Like what does he mean by honesty?
Well, what he did say to me, basically in private, when it came to honesty, he said a lot of times, teachers present one face to the students, but another face to the world. And I asked, I said, well, what do you mean, one face to the students? He said, well, a lot of times the teacher will teach his students, or she would teach her students. But at the same time, what they're showing the student is not what the instructor really is. You know, so he came up with the word hypocrisy, being hypocritical. So I was listening to him, and I said, well, Doc, you know, what does that have to do with anything? And he said, well, if you're going to be true to yourself, then you got to start with yourself, because if you're not, then you won't be true to anybody else. And for the people that you're teaching, you won't be true to them. You know, you won't get them to understand what's really going on in the world, because when he said that, it made me start on an article, and the article was entitled Teachers of the Greater Purpose. And it was because of him that I wrote that. And let me see where that is. Let me see. Do we have? Can I read some of that to you?
Yes, sir. We have about an hour and 26 minutes left.
Okay. Let me read some of this article that I wrote a long time ago. It's called Teachers of the Greater Purpose, and this was inspired by Doc. And maybe this would kind of answer some of the things as far as that question is concerned. You know.
Yes, sir.
It is said that all men are travelers on a journey throughout this world. Their first home is the cradle, and their second home is the grave, and their ultimate place is either paradise or hell. While sitting and pondering the possibilities of life, I ask myself this question: what is man's ultimate purpose in the vast universe? It is obvious to me that man, because of his ability to reason and make conscious decisions, is the highest form of creation. Man's intellectual and moral nature is what places him above all other creatures. It is said that the teacher who teaches only for the sake of this world is an unfortunate teacher, and this is because he or she does not teach students to remove the obstacles to good deeds. A true teacher not only teaches the doing of good deeds, but he or she also teaches the students to contemplate the spiritual world and to remember the Creator's rewards and punishment, seen and unseen. The teacher that takes the student on a journey beyond the superficial understanding of this world is a teacher of great merit. It is a fact that an individual cannot teach past the limitations of his or her knowledge, and that's why it's very important for all martial arts instructors to continue to grow intellectually and morally. It is not possible for a teacher to teach his or her students about the ultimate purpose in life if he or she has no sense of what it is. Issues that should be impressed upon the minds of martial arts students are self-respect, respect for others, respect for life, charity, prayer, and above all, love and respect for the Creator of all things. When it comes down to the ultimate destiny of the martial artist, it won't have anything to do with kumite, fighting, kata, or weapon performances. It will all come down to one thing, the condition of the soul, and that will be based upon the condition of the heart and mind of each individual. I don't really think we can afford to continue to be superficial in our teachings. Let's not make martial arts tournaments the ultimate goal of human life. I truly believe that there is a life beyond this one, and it would be more than tragedy to end this world's journey unprepared. I extend peace to all teachers of the greater purpose.
That's an excellent way to answer that question.
Yeah,
Professor, he says next comes strong basics. Like what do you consider strong basics in Sanuces drill?
On the physical level, your rollouts, ukemi, your break falls, and your rolls. Because without strong basics, a lot of times you couldn't get through the self-defense exercises if you were the uke and you had to take a high fall. You know, I've seen it happen a lot of times. You know, he's throwing somebody, and because they don't know how to fall, even myself, even when I started training on the Sanuces, I had never really been thrown from high like that, you know, up in the air. So, you know, because I say, you know, when you fall, you just fall. But in Sanuces, we learn how to break our falls, we learn how to roll out, we learn how to take a fall. So those were some of the strong basics on the physical level, you know. But again, on the mental and intellectual level, it always goes back to humility. That's part of basic training also. Because without that, again, you would be left behind. So you had to listen to your instructor, and if you're from another style or system, you know, you won't place yourself in a position where you question what he said because you learned something this way or that way, but you accept what he was saying so that you can continue to grow or evolve.
Yes, sir. Professor, and in the last part of that comment that Doc said was, and he said history and dedication to the arts. What history is he talking about, and what does he mean by dedication to the arts?
Well, he would always say when it came to history, he would always say, don't just listen to what people tell you. You know, research.
Research it.
Research. He would say, Doc, what should we, you know, what, just find information? He said, no, research information.
And do your homework.
Take it upon yourself. Do your homework. Take it upon yourself to create your own library. Take it upon yourself to be versed in what you say you know. Because, you know, when I thought about that, I said, you know, that makes a lot of sense, because a lot of times we're involved in the martial arts systems and we're not even versed in the terminology of that system. We have no understanding of why certain things are given to us, or when we in certain systems you're doing the kata, you need to do the bunkai to break it down and understand, you know, what that meant. What is this move for? What is that move for? That's what he also said as far as researching and understanding technique. So I say, you know, that makes sense. So what I did, brother, and right now, if you see my little library, brother, look at here. I start buying books from everywhere, getting papers and articles, listening to what other martial artists had to say, and that's how I began to grow. You see, because I give you an example. Back in the early 70s, I actually started off in the system of Nisei Goju-Ryu under Master Herbie Thompson. But there were some people in the system who had a knack for putting down other martial arts systems. And like one guy said, judo. He said, man, I wouldn't take judo. Judo is soft. You see, and I'm looking at him and say, judo is soft. You know, they got the grab, and you know, I'm just listening to him. Judo is soft, blah, 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 you know. So I thought about that, but after that, a long time after that, when I got to understand what judo was about, I said, you know, that brother was really ignorant to talk about judo like that. Because when it got right down to it, when you study judo, you find out that judo is a very effective art. It comes from jiu-jitsu. Jigoro Kano is strong. And if you don't watch yourself, you either choked out, you either submitting, or something broke or twisted. But because we're not subjected to that particular art and we only know about one art, you know, ignorance leads us astray. So now we come to understand that all martial arts have something to offer. No matter what form it is, all you got to do is lend yourself to learning something about it. You see?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And is that what it means when it says dedication to the arts? It's basically be open to learn from all martial arts.
Be open, brother. Dedication to the arts, not the dedication to one particular art, but the dedication to all the arts. Because nowadays you'll find that most of the training that's going on is cross-training. People from different sections of everybody's learning everybody else's art. That's why when the Gracies came along and they said, look, well, we'll show you that we can take you down even though you've been practicing karate for 50 years. But the Gracies came and they opened the door and let people know, say, look, you've been missing this. And they know, hey, that was good. Now it got everybody practicing jiu-jitsu. but before that, you know, hey, brother, no, brother, I wouldn't be taken down to the ground. I'm gonna stand up. You know, Doc say, listen, you know, if you practice jiu-jitsu, it won't hurt you to go somewhere to join a boxing club.
Oh,
you see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that's what he said. So be dedicated to the arts. You know, if somebody's trying to show you something, go ahead and accept that, man. Don't allow your prejudices to keep you from evolving to a higher level.
Hey, Professor, it's funny you said that. I'm sorry, go ahead,
Hey, Professor, Doc had, and you're speaking of Nisei, Doc had Frank Ruiz. They both was down in Broward County. Frank Ruiz came to a Sanuces Ryu dojo, and he was teaching Nisei. Goju fighting concepts to jiu-jitsu people.
Yeah, that's right.
It wasn't a Sanuces technique. He was at the dojo teaching Nisei Goju. And I have a picture from that day when Frank Ruiz came to Doc's dojo and the whole class did Nisei.
I used to be around both of them, brother. Yeah, I used to be around both of them.
Hey, Professor, it's funny you mentioned boxing. How did Doc feel about boxing?
Well, Doc was all for boxing, man. Matter of fact, he said that he was training under somebody before dealing with boxing. You know, and I don't remember who it was, but yeah, he said he trained under boxing before. He trained under stick fighting and other forms, and so his dedication was, hey, learn. You know, learn. Don't get stuck on one particular style. So that goes back to when I was young and Bruce Lee was the thing. See, but Bruce Lee was saying, well, hey, you know, I don't want to be dealing with fixed patterns or get stuck doing something. You know, I want to be able to have some flexibility mentally and spiritually. You know, so, he dealt with different styles, different forms of martial arts. So I have no problem with that. If somebody's trying to show you something and you get an opportunity to learn something, I may do that because I've had stick fighters. I've trained in Kempo before, Kung Fu, you know, and it's all good. It's all good, guys.
So I'm going to keep reading your article. So it says, Dr. Powell went on to tell me that many instructors are not honest or for real with themselves or their students, and many of them are not educating but miseducating the students. Dr. Powell concluded his answer by saying this: Master V was a great teacher with a great spirit, and that the world lost a great human being. I questioned Dr. Powell about the source of his knowledge concerning the pressure points and nerve striking. He mentioned the name of Mr. T. Wong and his PIA nerve striking system. Tell me about PIA. So when it came to the Florida era, the creation, what I call the beginnings of the Sanuces Ana system, PIA. What was your understanding of what PIA is?
Well, we asked him that. I mean, it was a group of us one day. We asked him about, well, what is the PIA, the PIA? You know, and actually, when I interviewed him, he said, well, Mr. T. Wong. T. Wong. So this is the person who was teaching him nerve striking, pressure points. So obviously he had been involved with Mr. Wong's system. And the Wong, that name, I guess we can assume that he was Chinese.
Yes,
Mr. T. Wong in his PIA nerve striking system. So a lot of things Doc used to do concerning nerve strikes, you know, and I found that very, very extraordinary. And that's another thing that really had me gravitating toward him, when he would touch you, you know, and make you do funny things.
This is On the Mat. I'm with a living legend, Professor Jerry Denson. Professor Jerry Denson. His article is, we're reading his article, Dr. Moses Powell, the Man, the Legend. On this article, I'm fortunate enough to have this article in my possession, but on this article, I'm reading it exactly as it is. In the middle of this article is Professor Denson holding the hand of Dr. Powell, and Dr. Powell's arm is around him. And they're both facing squared up, looking right into the camera. And behind them is, you could tell that they're, well, actually, exactly as I read, they're in the Shaolin Kung Fu Academy in Miami, Florida. And on the walls is a lot of kanji, and I'm assuming written in Chinese. So, Professor, so when you wrote this article, Doc, he read this article. He must have seen this article.
Oh, yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Okay,
yes, it was done before he passed away. But this is not the last article. Actually, there's another article that was the last article, the last interview before he passed.
Yes,
this one was before that.
Let me ask you this, Professor. Now, yeah, because it says it clear as day. It says he mentioned the name of Mr. T. Wong and his PIA nerve striking system. So yes, we know that PIA represents in the Sanuces, PIA is the nerve striking techniques, but they also got this other mention of PIA which is these katas. The katas they call PIA. So what's the difference between the PIA katas and the PIA nerve striking techniques?
Well, it all depends on if we're just talking about as far as PIA as the form's concerned, you know.
PIA forms.
Certain PIA forms, yeah, certain names give you different definitions, you know. So we have to actually say, well, just like the word kata, we know as far as karate is concerned, kata means the forms, the prearranged forms. But in jiu-jitsu or judo, the kata means the prearranged self-defense move when you get together with your partner and he does a technique on you and you do a technique on him. You see, so when it comes down to PIA, the nerve striking, PIA, the kata, you know, they may use the same word just like in another case of something sounding the same, but it has a different meaning. You know, but my understanding as far as, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it would be good that, you know, especially to our listeners out here, that we should maybe want to start adding this to our vocabulary, that there is PIA, the nerve striking techniques,
right,
and then there's PIA, the kata.
The kata.
The PIA form. Hey, Grandmaster, Professor Jerry Denson, Doc told me when I asked him about PIA, he said PIA and Sanuces, they can't be separated. He says, okay, if you don't know PIA, you don't know Sanuces, and that you can't do Sanuces. You can't do Sanuces without knowledge of PIA. Does that sound familiar with what Doc was saying, Clarence?
No, brother, that is familiar. And you know what he said?
Yes, sir.
Doc said, go find you a book on the human anatomy.
Gray's Anatomy.
Okay. Study that book on anatomy. Because, because in my studies I came across the Japanese term kyushu. And kyushu was vital point striking. That's an art within itself, but it goes right back to PIA. But we just
now, Professor, is there a difference? Is there a difference between kyushu and the Sanuces PIA application?
Well, not really. It all goes together. Okay. It all goes together because basically when Doc was doing things or he touching certain places on your body or hitting certain nerves, and when you study kyushu, you'll find out that it all deals with vital point striking, or striking areas that's vital to the life of the human being. Sometimes you can just press certain parts of the body and hit certain nerves, but it doesn't mean that it's a vital point strike. But when you hit a certain nerve, you understand me, that interferes with your breathing or your functioning, then you're on a different level. But the main point he was making is that we should dig deep into the research of that, because, you know, back in ancient times when people were dealing with healing, they used those nerves to put in the pins and, you know, to do certain things. But later on, people started using that to kill instead of to heal. Yeah.
Professor, you say in the article that Dr. Powell also studied Bushido karate under Ernest Mitchell and judo under his role model, Elliot FAROUQ. His training also consisted of sword, stick fighting, and boxing. Dr. Powell had this to say about martial arts training and spirituality. I just want to add, I'm not going to go to all. Only one thing I want to ask you, this one thing, because we're going to move on. Bushido karate is what he studied. Let me ask you, when it, you know, you say, you know, rigid, you know, flow like a stream, not be rigid.
Yeah.
Where does karate have its place in the Sanuces eye development, in the development that he was doing in Florida? What is the place of karate? Where did you see karate coming in?
Well, basically, you know, like Doc said, he studied Bushido. He studied karate. Okay, but just like any instructor who evolves to a certain level, maybe he decided that a middle blocker, what we call in Nisei, Chudan-uke, maybe doing a middle block that way doesn't seem the best way to approach a situation. So maybe by having the palm turned up, maybe you turn the palm down and block with the edge of the hand to receive the strike. You know, it's all good, like I said before, but it all depends upon the individual and what suits him or her. Because Doc used to say, look, I give you this, you know, let's see what you do with it. Because, you know, if you have somebody short, he wouldn't try to necessarily do techniques that somebody tall would. So it all depends upon your anatomy, your physique, your structure. Because if you're trying to throw someone, you know, you weren't necessarily trying to pick up a 500 man and throw him over your shoulder. If anything, you would use a circular motion and maybe tip him over your hip, but not necessarily pick him up. So the techniques has the potential of variations, and you have to find out what works for you. I mean, if you're a boxer, maybe your strongest point is a left hook. But if you can't execute that, maybe another strong point can be just a straight front kick. Or if you have to take somebody down, maybe your strong point then would be able to choke someone out. But it's not necessarily that whatever art it is how you apply the art, because all styles are made by man. And it all depends upon the individual who's doing the style or the system, not necessarily the style or system itself.
So basically, in a way, Sanuces, I guess the simplicity, and this is just coming to my mind, like Allah just revealing this to me as we talk about it. But do you think that maybe the simplicity could be like this? Maybe it's like, you know, when you're fighting, you're always in different ranges, you know what I mean? And based on, and like what you were just describing, the choking range, the kicking range, the punching range, the boxing range, and based upon which range you're at, Sanuces gives you a simple approach to deal with that person in that particular range.
Whatever it is. Because if you look up the word Ju in Jiu-Jitsu, Ju is an ideogram that means flexibility.
Right. Yes, sir.
Jitsu, the Jitsu part means the art or the scientific application of the technique. But Ju means being able to adapt to whatever the situation is. Jiu-Jitsu. So if you're in Jiu-Jitsu, then you're most likely to be a part boxer, kicker, grappler. If you're in Judo, you're most likely to do all those things too, except kick. But if you allow yourself to expand and get into the Ju of Jiu-Jitsu, then you'll find out that Ju gives you flexibility, the opportunity to expand yourself no matter what the situation may be. So it's nothing rigid there. So jiu-jitsu deal with the throws, the strike, the arm twisting, conceptual waza, sacrifice throws, but you're sensible in your approach. A lot of people look at the grappling aspect of jiu-jitsu as the most ultimate aspect, but how many people can you grapple at one time?
Yes, sir.
So we got to use what's the term, dashiki, or common sense. When you're in battle, so you've got to be thinking. So that's what you just with. You think?
I see the lines are lighting up. Please stay on there. I'm gonna get to these callers in a minute. If you're just tuning in, we got Professor Jerry Denson, one of the pioneers of the Sanuces rule evolution in the Miami, Florida era. 619-996-1602. Continue, Professor, please.
Yes. So the main point is, as far as Doc was saying, simplicity. Mm-hmm. And we, keep it simple, keep it scientific, but you keep it simple. It's just like trying to move a big ice box or something. You don't just go to it with brute force, but you find out its point of imbalance and where you can tilt it to move it. So there's a science behind this art also.
Professor, one of the things that you said, and of course I agree, is that Doc kept it simple. But when you see some of the what I call fluff, you see these techniques with a lot of fluff, but no real sense of self-defense behind the movements. They're meant to do almost like a showboating. They're almost putting on a show rather than showing what Sanuces is. We didn't have that problem in the 80s and the early, late 80s, early 90s, and Florida, and well, of course we had our renegades, people that do Sanuces, or they teach Sanuces as kind of as a show off instead of a martial art, which is what it was. One of the things that I remember, especially my time was I only spent a couple of years with Doc, and I spent 9 with Gino. One of the things that coming up was that we really got straight to the point, and we did conform. And like you're saying, we were able to adapt to all situations because we had to defend ourselves against every single type of attack that can be thought of at the time.
Okay.
And the techniques were always simple, and it wasn't a lot of I see some hitting people 20 times and then moving into the movement. It was one. It was really A, B, and C, and it was over.
That's right. To the proper source. Right where you can do anything or hit anywhere, you had to know where you was going. You had to know.
And PLC was used as a part of the Sanuces system, and because when Doc would hit you, we like Shabazz, that's where the karate system come in. Well, one of the things that we had a makawara in the dojo that was on the on the wall. We had to hit the makawara to condition our hands. Sometimes you have to go dig for nerve. We did control techniques. We had to go dig to find a nerve. The nerve wouldn't necessarily be on top of where it should be. So Doc would show you how to, how he would condition his hands, not like Okinawans, but just to get him strong enough so he can actually go find that nerve that's going to be hiding behind that bone or something like that. So that's one of the aspects that karate came in handy. It wasn't necessarily that we were practicing karate. It was just he was using some of the karate's training to improve his jiu-jitsu and his PIA.
Yeah, karate, empty hands. That's what we're talking about. Every people found a way to defend themselves against oppressors. And karate was just one way, just like kung fu is another way, but it's all interrelated. There's no style that actually is so-called better than the next style. It all depends upon the individual, the people that's training under it, because all of it is meant to do a certain thing. And all you got to do is know what's good for you.
Professor,
even look at the name Bushido. Bushido means the way of self-defense. So even the karate style he studied was a self-defense oriented karate style.
It was definitely a form of self-defense. And, just like his teacher and the teacher before him, everybody had their idea of what worked. It all depends upon that culture, that particular culture. At this point, my particular system or my idea of self-defense, I would like to use the term modern warrior.
Yes, sir.
The warriors of this era, because of this era, we're not concerned about someone coming, upon us to put a spear through us, someone who's jumping out of the darkness with a sword. What we're dealing with nowadays, gunfire, knives, sticks, people coming up close to you with a weapon. What do you do if they're kind of away from you? And, you have to look at every situation in the reality of this culture.
Yes,
I have a stick fighting instructor. He's teaching us his culture from the way things were going on in the Philippines. Okay, but we use that and we learn that, but we have to adjust that to what's going on in America today in the urban environment.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna go to the line a little bit. I'm gonna take some calls before I continue. We're going to the top of the hour. Let me see. 7704. Welcome to On the Mat.
Thank you. Professor, I was wondering if you could expound on the difference as you have experienced between being a student and being a disciple of martial arts.
Well, we have many students. We have many people who are students, okay? But there are very few disciples. Now, the difference is that a student can be anyone who comes to you to learn, but a disciple is someone who's there to stay and to follow the principles of that particular system. So you have people who are into the martial arts just for, something to do. Then there are people who are into the martial arts for life. So that it's all about the attitudes. It's all about the attitude. That's what it's about.
Thank you for your call, brother. Did you have any more questions, or that was your only question?
Just that one question, sir.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for calling On the Mat.
All right, let me take the next call. 6423. 6423. Welcome to On the Mat.
Hello.
6423.
Hello.
Yes. Hello. Hi. Welcome to On the Mat show. How are you doing today, sir?
Pretty good. I just want to know about you. I want to mention it.
What did you want to know, sir?
That he was learning a stick fighting form. Who did he learn from? Was it from Doc himself, or was it someone else totally different, or was it from Master V?
Well, brother, I've learned part of stick fighting from Dr. POWELL, and also I have an instructor. His name is Abundi Obeyed from the Philippines. He's a Filipino stick fighting champion. So it's been a couple of people.
Do you have any rankings in the Filipino arts?
Do I have any rank in the Filipino arts?
Yes.
No, brother. No. I've just studied, just like, I have rank in jiu-jitsu, I have a rank in karate, and kempo. I've trained with different people. A lot of things I don't have rank in, I just have the knowledge in it.
Okay. And the karate, you mentioned Nisi a couple of times. Did you study directly under Grandmaster Frank Lewis?
No, Herbie Thompson.
And you received rank under him?
Yes.
What rank did you receive under him?
Go down. 5th degree.
were you studying the karate at the same time you were doing jiu-jitsu, or was it?
Well, no. The first 10 years from 1970, I was with Master Herbie Thompson. In the 80s, I started training in jiu-jitsu under Dr. POWELL.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you for calling on the mat. Let me go to the next caller, 0258. Welcome to On the Mat. 0258. 0258. Okay. All right. I'm gonna continue on with the article.
Okay, bro.
Dr. Powell. All right. The martial arts. Now, this is a quote from him. The martial arts is 75% spiritual and 25% physical. Meditation is an important part of the martial arts training because it is a way in which the Creator speaks to the human mind and soul. We must acknowledge the higher force because if we don't, arrogance sets in, and we will end up passing that arrogance on to those we teach. But it's a more Doc said. Well, let me just build on that. What the first part I just said. What is that saying? What am I reading right there? What is Doc saying there?
Well, we would sometimes, when he would do his seminars, we would ask him different questions. And someone asked him something concerning spirituality. And so Doc told us, he said, well, 75% is spiritual. 25% is physical. So the martial arts deals more with that which is spiritual than that which is physical. And he went on to say that no matter how much training we involve ourselves in on the physical level, we can't forget about the higher power that gives us the ability to do that. So we must acknowledge the higher force. We must acknowledge the Creator. If we don't, we'll get to the point where we may think that we're the Creator, and we become arrogant, and we pass that arrogance in our spirit on to our students, and then we start creating a generation of arrogant martial artists. I'm quite sure you witnessed some people who walk around with their chest pumped out, and some of them would even tell you, well, my name is Master so-and-so. You can't say sensei. They want you to call them master. See? So we don't want to get into that state of mind because we must always remember, and as I was reading one time, it said that if a man wants to understand how small he really is, all he has to do is stand by the ocean. To understand how small he really is. So his creation is not bigger than the universe. So humility is a must. Again, we come back to that word. No matter how many degrees we think we have, because people are always concerned about rank. Do you have rank? Well, what belt are you? What belt? But as Sensei Herbie Thompson used to say, the belt doesn't make the man.
Professor, man, I enjoyed this conversation, and I'm so happy I put it under Bushido because this is definitely a Bushido type of interview. And even like me personally, like when that comes to like how I view success, I tell people all the time, there's only two things that make you successful, and that's keeping up prayer and feeding the poor. And I really believe if you keep up prayer and if you feed the poor, I believe that's all you really have to do to be successful in life.
Okay.
It
is important, brother.
Let me keep on reading. It says, we must understand that misused words generates misleading thoughts. That's deep. Doc said that we must understand that misused words generates misleading thoughts. What does he mean by that?
That's what he said. Well, he used to tell us, sometimes the brother would say something and Doc would say, do you hear yourself? and we say, what did he say? Did you hear yourself? Yeah, what? No, I don't think you heard yourself. Did you hear what you just said?
Yeah.
You don't know how that sounds. So that means you need to think a little more before you say something. You know, and we was trying to figure out why he was on the brother's case, but this was the kind of brother he would say something, and it would probably say anything if you didn't put him in check, you know. And so Doc said,
yes,
"Do you hear what you're saying? Do you hear how you sound?" So when he spoke about misused words generating misleading thoughts, because a lot of times we could say something and people take it the wrong way, even though we didn't mean it that way. So we need to analyze what we're saying. We need to analyze what we're thinking. It's just like having students, and you tell your students, all right, well, we're going out to the tournaments. And when you get to the tournament, on the sideline, you hear some instructors telling 9- and 10-year-old children, kill him. They're in competition now. So what kind of message are we sending to our children when we get them to the point that they're overreacting and they forget that part of the martial arts is just a sport and that you really don't need to be in a tournament trying to kill someone? So we have to beware of what we say, because if we use the wrong words, it can create a very bad understanding.
And Professor, an example possibly could be like we're in the dojo with Doc or something, and people would talk about another martial art in a degrading way, and I think that's probably what Doc meant by that, because you say that these karate guys ain't nothing, but then when you put your hands on them karate guys, they lick your behind up. And,
right.
Because you were studying snookers at the time or whatever was being taught, people, and that's just natural. We still do dojo to dojo. People still talk about other martial arts.
That's right.
Anything bad. I never heard Dr. Moses Powell say anything bad about any art, not in my entire time being around the man.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Because that's how he had all different types of people coming to him for teachings from all walks of life.
Professor, Doc also continued to say, he says that the only way to truly become a great martial artist is to become a great human being. It does not work the other way around. When you're practicing self-defense techniques, you're applying yourself. You are the technique. It is the same with spirituality. You must not only apply yourself physically, but spiritually as well. It is what all great teachers have done. The intellect, character, and skill possessed by many of us are the products of certain original tendencies. But those tendencies have to be developed or cultivated, or they remain just tendencies. We can't become so caught up in learning the techniques that we forget about keeping the mind and spirit in good condition. What stands out when I just read here is when Doc says that you are the technique. Do you remember him saying that in class before? And if not, what do you think he means when he says you are the technique?
Well, he was asked that question at a seminar, actually. And someone said, said something to him, and he said, in return, he said, what is a technique? And he had everybody thinking about the question. So he went on to say, you are the technique. You are applying yourself. And then, he continued to speak upon, being spiritual beings. Even though we work hard in the martial arts trying to learn techniques, we have to also keep in mind that we're spiritual beings, and that being a 9th or 10th degree black belt doesn't necessarily make you a good human being. But if you're a good human being, it makes you an even greater 9th or 10th degree black belt.
Let me ask you, which also proposed something else I just read. He says that a great martial artist is to become a great human being. It does not work the other way around. How, in your opinion, how does one become a great human being?
Well, we're just talking about basic human nature now. If you've grown up with all the right qualities and the right teachings, then most likely you're a good human being. Now, anything else that comes on the top of that, anything else that you can achieve, only makes that greater because you are a good human being. It's just like being a powerful man, but you're a compassionate man. So your compassion stands out because even though you have the power to harm or destroy someone, you choose to forgive. You understand what I'm saying? So it's the human qualities that stands out. So, you know, you may be someone running around with a gun in your pocket, but you have no human qualities of compassion and concern for other people, so you're just out on the street shooting anywhere, hitting some innocent child, just acting like you just don't care. That's because your human quality is lacking.
I'm going to
so when
continue
it
to read
comes
the
down
article.
to, you see?
Yes, sir. I'm going to continue to read the article. It says, Dr. Powell took a moment to reflect on the benefit of knowledge. He quoted from the Holy Quran, the Muslims' book of guidance. He says, He grants wisdom to whom He pleases, and he to whom wisdom is granted receives indeed a benefited overflowing, but none will grasp the message but men of understanding. And this is the Holy Quran, chapter 2, Surah 2, ayah 269.
Right.
Dr. Powell also says, whatever success we gain is from the Creator of us all. The true martial artist will never forget that. He or she will always strive to overcome their own personal weaknesses. The greatest battle is not with others, but with self. We must overcome our own shortcomings. Let me ask you, just from what I just read here, how does one overcome their own shortcomings?
Overcome their own shortcomings. Let me give you a quote from, he's a ninjutsu master. His name is Masak Hatsumi. And in his words, he said, the enemy who is against the laws of nature will lose the battle before he begins to fight. The enemy who is against the laws of nature will lose the battle before he begins to fight. Now, basically, as human beings, and when it comes to self-defense, the greatest form of self-defense is not against somebody who's outside of ourselves, somebody external, but it's something internal that's within us, you know, that we have to battle against. Say it's greed, envy, arrogance. All these things exist in us, and that is the greatest battle. Because if we don't defeat that or those negative qualities, then we can't truly be successful. It's just like being someone who's led around by his own delusion or his delusions of grandeur. He thinks he's more than he actually is. So that's what he tells himself. Or as they say, a legend in his own mind.
Do you run across that a lot, Professor? Do you come across a lot against like high-ranking masters or legends?
Enough. Believe me, brother, enough. Yeah. I run across it enough. You know, because that attitude exists, I think, almost everywhere in some form or fashion. Because when we think too highly of ourselves, it's just as bad as thinking too lowly of ourselves. We must find a middle way, a balance, and we must understand that whatever success we have, people help us to get that, or the Creator has blessed us to have that. So we can't take full account for that. We have to take a minute to be thankful.
You know, for the sake of time, Professor, and I also want to go into the heart-to-heart segment, I'm just going to read out the remaining part of this article.
Good, brother. Okay. 2
days later, after a wonderful and quite enlightening seminar, I gave Dr. Powell a call at his home. I asked him about some of his achievements as a martial artist. Dr. Powell has taught the United States and other countries teaching and establishing schools. He is the first martial artist to perform at the United Nations and the only martial artist to receive the International Beanie Award in 1972 for his community service and expertise. I read that a lot. That Beanie Award, what award is that?
Well, basically, brother, that was an award that they had given him for, being involved in community things, helping the kids and other projects dealing with the. Say it again.
So he was big in community service. He was big on that.
Oh yes, brother, especially with the kids,
Wow.
So anytime you give your heart to the kids, brother, you got the support of the community.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right, let me keep on reading here. All right, among many of his awards and special recognitions, there is one that stands out the most. His induction into the Martial Arts Hall of Fame in 1977 in New York City asked Dr. Powell what he considered to be his greatest achievement in life. He stated the love of family first of all and the genuine love and concern of people in general. Also asked him to describe himself as a human being. He said, spiritual and compassionate are words I would use to describe my nature. Let me see. I'm a giving person and a person who is happy when the people I love are happy. So it seems as though, and this is even from some other interviews, it seems as though Doc was a giver. It seems as though he was that true? Like, is that a good recreation of that?
He was, brother. Sometimes I think he would give too much.
I see.
Because there were times when he would try to do so much till, he came a bit despondent or depressed because he expected more people,
Yes, sir.
He expected more, but I think he adjusted to that point that, hey, you can expect all you want out of people, but they are going to be who they are.
Professor, I'm okay. I didn't ask Dr. Powell, what does he think about politics and martial arts? That's what you're talking about politics. What do you think about politics and martial arts? Dr. Powell, politics has no place in the martial arts because it damages the art form, and the people who politicize the art have the wrong spirit and will do more harm than good. I didn't ask him where did he think martial arts will be 20 years from now. Dr. Powell said, if teachers don't start teaching more than kicking and punching, the martial arts will be like.
You're breaking up a little bit, brother.
Am I still
we can't hear you.
Okay, we hear you now.
Okay. He says,
all right, it's still kind of dim, brother.
We can't hear you, Shabbat.
Let me see. Is it still breaking up now?
You're clear now.
I'm clear now. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So he says, I didn't ask him where did he think martial arts will be 20 years from now. Dr. Powell said, if teachers don't start teaching more than kicking and punching, then martial arts will be like an empty glass. Spiritual teaching is very important. He also said, what state do you think has the best martial artists? I asked. Dr. Powell said, that's difficult to say because in many states there are a lot of martial artists who don't get the recognition and people don't know about them, and politics has a lot to do with it. There are a lot of cliques in martial arts, and if you are not part of them, then you are not as important. Explain, because I want to get into this heart to heart, but talk about the cliques. When he talks about cliques in martial arts, what does he mean by that?
Well, it boils right down to politics. I mean, really, it's no different from the Republican Party and the Democratic Party and the different political entities that we have in society. As far as martial arts are concerned, a lot of things goes on that you can see, and it's just like if you're not part of a certain group of people, then you're not mentioned as much. Or if you come to compete in a tournament, and if you have 5 or 6 judges, and they're sitting there, maybe you have on the wrong patch as far as they're concerned. Or maybe you're the wrong skin color. Or maybe there's something that they find distasteful about you. And that's only to say that it's just an offshoot of what already goes on in this society, like racism, the prejudice, you know, the politics, you know. So dealing with the cliques or people who come together looking out for their own interests and not the interests of people in general, we have a lot of that going on. So hey, even when you go, you know, say, go ahead, brother.
You touched on something. You talked about the just now. You said, yeah. So I'm assuming that Doc broke down a lot of barriers for African Americans in the martial arts, like in the sense that he showed the world that that the black man is just as good as any other race, and actually I mean, in my opinion, Dr. Powell was the greatest martial artist in the 21st century, last century. So with that being said, do you think that in today, 2011, are there any more barriers that blacks have to face in martial arts in terms of proving themselves, or do you think that's dead and gone by now?
Brother, it's not dead and gone. It's still around. It's just like the Africans being released from slavery. They may have taken the chains off their legs and their arms, but the chains exist on more subtle levels, psychologically and spiritually. You see, so we still have those problems, even though they may not be as obvious. But you have to be able to see them and rectify when you see it. As far as martial arts, go ahead, brother.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry, Professor. I didn't mean to cut you off. Continue that thought.
No, go ahead. We're okay.
No, I was saying, in mind, one of the things that used to frustrate me when I went to college in New Orleans, and while I was in college, the main thing that kind of prevented me from getting my Sanuces was just I was always in college. The college wasted like almost a lot of my time. But while I was working on these degrees, I would try to take time to get back in the arts. But of course, the city I was in, there was never like a Sanuces school there. So I would always try to find the closest thing, to Sanuces, whether it was a Aikido school or Jiu-Jitsu school or whatever the case may be. And but when I would show them Sanuces on the when I would show them Sanuces, or if I showed them something on the internet, they would always say stuff like Sanuces lacks depth. That was always like the same response time and time again. It lacks depth. And then one time I would show them something else that had nothing to do with Sanuces. It would be I did this just to see. I would show them something totally different. And they said, okay, but when I show them the Sanuces, it lacks depth. Have you ever experienced that before?
Brother, I can't say that I have, but I can imagine what you're saying, because for some people, whenever you present anything that's in opposition to what they want to believe, they'll find a way to say that it lacks depth. And what's really lacking in depth is their understanding.
Right.
That's what's lacking. So you're going to always have that. But it could be small or on a wide scale, but that's why it's important that you believe in yourself, in what you're doing, and continue to do so. Believe me, brother. Mm-hmm.
All right, Professor, it says Dr. Powell, so the last question I posed to Dr. Powell was about the advice he had for all his students. And this is what Dr. Powell said. He said, quote, "Be for real. Don't try to be someone else. You have to recognize your own uniqueness and special talents. We are all the same in our own human makeup, but yet unique in the special talents that the Creator has bestowed upon us. That is what I have to say to my students and everyone in general. I'd like to conclude this article by rendering my own thanks and appreciation for my teacher and friend, Dr. Moses Powell. I've been part of his Sanuces Jiu-Jitsu system for 20 years, and during this time I've learned more than I could have ever imagined. The very first time I saw Dr. Powell executing self-defense techniques, I knew that was what I wanted to learn. It was quite distinct from what I was learning in the Nisi Goju system, but quite complementary. Master Herbie Thompson is a great teacher in his own right, and it would be remiss of me not to make mention of him when speaking of my own growth and development in the martial arts. I consider Master Thompson a true humanitarian when it comes to caring for the youth in our society, not to mention a great technician of the back fist, reverse punch, and sweep techniques. I give honors to both my instructors for their contributions to my growth and development. I also like to take this time to thank Cretidius, Master Vaselis, Katsatis, for publicizing. for publicizing this article and every article I've ever written over the past few years, and for the great work he's doing in recognizing and inducting qualified martial artists into the Florida Cosmetology Hall of Fame. SHIHAN Ernie Reynolds is another great contributor to the martial arts world. He has also been responsible for recognizing and having martial arts inducted into the Eastern International Martial Arts Hall of Fame. Last but not least, I'd like to thank my Kung Fu instructor, Sifu John Vinagas, for inviting Dr. Powell to his school to conduct the Jiu-Jitsu self-defense seminar. All right, so staying with this last thing, while you was talking, my computer rebooted. So I guess, like Doc said, be for real. So we're going to just be real. And, I guess the real part, I don't have the laugh or the heart sound, so I'm just going to go right into the heart-to-heart segment. One of the things that bothered me was the fact that there's a bit, particularly through SHIHAN, there's a lot of talent, obviously, in the Florida era. And why do you think why do you think it's not, why do you think you have your brothers in New York or the brothers in the mid-Atlantic states like Maryland, or even the brothers on the West Coast, why do you think we don't know, why hasn't there been more attention given to the Florida era?
Well, I wouldn't say, it wasn't enough attention given to the Florida area, but the fact is people are mostly involved with or directed toward that which is beneficial to themselves. You understand what I'm saying? So it's just like people in Florida, it's not that they're not concerned about people in New York, but believe me, brother, they're likely more concerned with what they have going on in their own individual circles, Like we just said, that martial arts deal with a lot of cliques.
Right.
You see? So in New York, it wouldn't be any difference. We still dealing with human minds. We're still dealing with human beings. And, they're into what they're doing and trying to maybe become more successful in that. And they're not really, looking over the fence trying to find out what's going on over there.
Right.
So when you ask me that question, I would just have to say, brother, people are directed toward whatever it is that brings benefits to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I see it.
And let me ask you, in the Florida area, is there unity amongst the different Sanuces rule masters in the Florida area?
Well, in the Florida area, just say, for instance, in Miami, you have, I'm an instructor here, and who else? And Phil Shanique. Phil Shanique has the Timmy Roo system, and he trained under Doc before, but his system is, like I said, Timmy Roo. And then there's SHIHAN Kevin Aaron. He's more up in Fort Lauderdale, you see. And sometimes I have SHIHAN Kevin, he comes down, and we do seminars together, And Phil Shanique, he would have seminars, and then a lot of the brothers would come out of New York, and everybody would go over to his spot, his dojo. So it all depends upon who it is, As far as
let me ask you, are there any? Do you ever have any masters from New York ever stop by your dojo?
Well, the ones that usually come down is when they come down for a seminar. If they come down. So I would say that most of the time, if they're coming down for a seminar, then most likely they're benefiting from that by getting paid or some beneficial way, But I guess if I would solicit the assistance of some of the masters from New York, they would come by my dojo. But my attitude is more into doing things with people who are more so in my vicinity, like SHIHAN Aaron, or not just from Sanuces, but from different styles. Because what I do, I solicit the help of other martial arts instructors from different systems, so that they can come in and teach, and so that my students can basically, take hold of that blessing, because we have a lot of martial artists down here in Florida,
And Sanuces, how right now in the Miami area is that brand still strong? I mean, is there still a high demand for Sanuces in Florida?
Well, yeah. Well, a lot of times I have people calling me, and sometimes they're, maybe in deep Florida, and they're asking me about where can they find a Sanuces school. And I heard Master Lil John is on the other end down there, so I would try to put him in contact with him or whatever instructor that I knew. So, you always have people asking about Sanuces.
Let me ask you this. Okay, when Doc was in Florida and during that time, did SOKE Little John ever come by, or did he ever train with Doc?
During that time, I never saw Little John come by. No, I never saw that. Now, if only, I heard maybe when Doc went back to New York or something, he was in contact with him. But no, personally, I never saw him come by. Not on this end.
We're in the beginning phases of working on. We still got some details hammering out, but we're working on the first annual Senjokai Martial Arts Sanuces Rule Seminar in Atlanta. But again, this is all beta. This is all the beginnings for shooting for July. But but on the calendar, in the future, definitely want to do a seminar in Miami where you at, and I would definitely love to organize some brothers, from our resources we have in New York and Atlanta, and just come to where you at and do a Sanuces Rule seminar in Miami, but coming to your home, how does that sound?
Well, brother, that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Believe me, I would never turn nothing down like that. I'm always, like I said, doing seminars anyway.
Right.
So we can do something that gives it a different twist. Believe me, brother, I'm all for it.
Okay, well, listen, man, so just keep that, because, one, like me, man, I don't really like to talk. I just do it, I try not to talk too much, but I just want to put it out there, and,
okay.
But do you think, like, with your, I mean, you deep. I mean, you've been in Sanuces since, 1981, and I mean, that's a long time in that area, and you probably one of the longest guys still doing it, right?
Well, I'm one of the ones, but you also have, Master Veronica Walker. She's in the Homestead area, so she's also into that, and it all depends. You have instructors that's kind of spread out.
Okay. But the point is, though, but as it relates to you, though, because I'm more interested, but as it relates to, because, and I hope like it, and I think we ought to get a conversation with Grandmaster Walker, but like the other ones, she, her name is pretty, people know her, but, and I'm not saying people don't know you, because people do know you, but I feel that with your humility and with your loyalty to Doc, I think it's time for your time to come as well. You know what I mean? And
inshallah, whatever God has up for me,
Right.
Yeah, and Shabazz.
I feel like you've been putting the work in, Yeah.
And Shabazz, I think it's only fair that we mentioned that although we got, there's some senior masters and grandmasters, that you need to mention who did Doc leave in charge of Florida, South Florida.
Oh, definitely. So who did and I want to just set up the audience, set it up like this. From my understanding, from recreating, because I've only met Dr. Paul once in my life. I was 12 years old. So everything out of that is just I'm recreating him through stories and through these interviews and through stuff I read. But from my understanding, Doc would have a representative for every state or every state that he taught in. And I know that the representative for Florida, for the entire state of Florida, was Professor Jerry Denson. Can you talk on that?
Well, years ago, and I think I sent SHIHAN an article dealing with that. I think at that time, a few years ago, we were doing a seminar at the SHIHAN Vernon School, and the south end of Florida, Homestead area, and Doc basically he appointed me as the representative for Sanuces in the Florida area. So and that was like maybe about 10 years ago.
Wow.
So before he passed, and that was so it was like that. I mean, basically, brother, I would be representing anyway, without the official,
Right.
Without the official go ahead, but that's how I am. So whenever Doc was coming to town, if he left and was gone for a while, he'd come back. I'm always trying to organize something so that we could do something to show our appreciation.
So for Doc to make you the representative of Florida, I mean, you guys must have had a very, very tight relationship.
Yeah, well, we did, brother, because believe me, there are, like I said, there were times when we trained at Doc's home. There are times when Doc, stayed at my house, and, I had an opportunity to speak with him and to, get that information and, just, we had a bond. And there was a lot of other things that was going on, and all I could tell you, man, it was just, it was deep. The dojo that you trained with Dr. Powell in '81, that was in Miami, right? Yeah, actually, that was in Fort Lauderdale. Okay, Fort Lauderdale. Okay, and just for the purpose of historical, and just for the purposes of historical, document, because these are all historical interviews. I mean, just for the purposes of that, what was the address of that original dojo you trained in? So man, you brother looking, I can't tell you that. No, I'm gonna have to get that to you. I'm serious.
Well, Professor, we know that you and Doc because we know that you and Doc had a school on 27th Avenue in Miami. That was back in. As a matter of fact, that was back in the early '80s. That was in Opelika. That was what we call a section of Miami, Opelika, Florida. Yes, sir. Now my mind is nowadays is not really good for remembering certain things, but brother, I could tell you where the building was or what it looked like and everything. When you get down those addresses, and just, I'd have to look up that information. Yeah. But yes, he did a lot of teaching down there, and that was during the time I would have different instructors come through the school, come through the dojo to help with the students and expose them to different teachings, And Doc, he was all for that, and he would go to tournaments with us, and he taught me how to use the rollouts in actual combat. And I would go to tournaments, and he would go with us, and I would show him how much I appreciated that by using that rollout in my fighting. And so, we it was a lot of learning going on then. So, like I said, I just wanted to be able to show him how much I appreciate what he was doing. And so, yes, indeed. Yeah, you always got talk about knowing how to fight in different ranges, man. You got to know how to use technology when technology is good until everything messes up, And I'm trying to. So I'm not in my portal now. So as we're talking, I know it's probably got about 15 minutes left before it ends. So just while I'm working in here, Professor, just talk. Just tell me what's on your mind. Just talk about Sanuka. Just tell me some stuff what's going on in your dojo. Give me the address. Like, just let me know. Get me caught up. What's going on in with your dojo? What's the movement like out there in terms of Sanuka's rule and all what you guys are doing out there? Well, basically at this time, most of my my teachings are being done on Mondays and Wednesday nights,
at my karate instructor's dojo, Sensei Herbie Thompson, you know. And I also do private lessons at my home, you know. And I'm around different places sometimes, you know, just, I guess you could say like an evangelist, getting around different places trying to spread Sanuces. But I'm just basically a martial artist who's down there, you know, and I love teaching. And when people come to me, I you know, just like the children, I feel that they should be taught more than just kicking and punching. So, for instance, last Sunday we did an issue on Malcolm X, and so you know, get the kids to understand their history, because if they don't understand who they are and where they come from, that can create a problem all by itself. So we need to have our kids, they need to have the high self-esteem, positive self-esteem. They need to feel good about themselves, and we're still combating the results of slavery. Even though we know legally slavery is over with, you know, but morally and spiritually we still have a problem with that, because many of our people are enslaved by, you know, corrupt ideas or, you know, corrupt concepts of self. We don't know who we are. You know, like Doc said, be for real. But the only way we can be for real, we must have real information about our human nature. You know,
yes, sir.
We have to have that. Yeah.
Listen, Doc, I heard Doc say many times to people that would try to be like him, or they would try to move in a certain way, and then he would do the same technique but put a different spin on it. Doc said many times, don't be like me, be like yourself. What do you think he meant?
Yeah,
I mean, we know what it means.
I heard him say that.
Yeah,
I heard him say that.
Yeah, well, don't be me.
Don't
be you.
Don't be me. That be you. That's right. Because each and every one of us, we are unique.
Yes, sir.
So, you know, a lot of people trying to be Michael Jordan. So you so busy trying to be Michael Jordan, you don't know you may have the potential to be better than Michael Jordan.
Yes, sir.
So be yourself. You may be going beyond Michael Jordan's ability. But we got to have enough, we have to have enough understanding and enough respect and love for ourselves, you know, in order to do that.
You're listening to Professor Jerry Denson, a pioneer and a legend out of the Miami, South Florida region. He talked, and he's a disciple of Dr. Moses Powell, the official representative of the entire state of Florida for the Sanuces system. 619-996-1602. We have 9 minutes left. If you want to call in, talk to this living legend. Let me actually take in a call. I see a call here. Let me see. 5173.
5173.
Yes. How you doing, brother? Welcome to On the Mat.
5173.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, go ahead. I have a question. Wa alaikum salam. You got a question for Professor Jerry?
Yes. I will go back to one of the statements that this is let's say for law here.
Oh, let's say for law. Assalamu alaikum, Professor.
This is singing. Professor Jerry, this is my good friend and my dear brother. And the brother have a strong alliance with Professor Saifullah, singing Professor Saifullah Al-Amriki.
Oh, okay. I remember the brother.
Out of Philadelphia, Atlanta.
Philadelphia. Just a little guy.
Go ahead, Professor.
One of the things that I know is not so much of a question, but just a collaboration on one of the statements that the professor made there. That about Doc. I know some of the things that I was hearing on the way, is growing up through the system, is that Doc wants all this money, or you want this and you want that. And even some people even took to came to the notion that it was even good, more profitable for them and their schools to just change the name. You know, I'll just change the system, that way I don't have to, pay Doc any money. You know, when the professor said that Doc, he felt that Doc, may have gave a lot more than, of himself than, more than people, even realize. It reminded me of a situation that happened to me, where, it shocked me, well, actually two. One is when I brought Doc to Philadelphia in 1994. And, school was just we had just opened the school, and really we didn't have much money. And I thought I actually, I met SHIHAN, Eric Allen. He was training at another location, and I happened to walk in one day and see him there. He told me he was a student of Dr. Moses Powell. I said, well, I'd like to bring Doc here. He said, well, we can make that happen. And we got a chance to talk to Doc, and set up the price. And at that time, I was told that just to get Doc to come out of the house was $2,500. I mean, that's not a fee, but that's just to get him to come out of his door. And the price that Doc agreed to come to Philadelphia on, which was like a bunch of peanuts to me, was remarkable. There's this great world famous martial artist, formed all over the world, Madison Square Garden, and he came down, to Philadelphia and brought, his hookies and some of the students, and man, the place was packed, and he asked for what he asked for, which was a little nothing. The second situation was I had Doc said when I call you come, and it was up in the Guayaquil airport. He was having one of his his seminars and banquets, and I didn't have no funds. I student help get me there. And where I was at the next day, I had to leave, and I had to walk with my bags all the way to this train station. And I thought it was, I didn't know it was that long of a walk, but I had to walk there. But what was remarkable, Professor James told me that Doc wanted to see you, and when I heard Doc wanted to see me, I said, oh wow, I hope I didn't do anything, I'm thinking one of those type of numbers. So I get downstairs, I think we went to like a second floor. And I walked through, I went into the room that Doc was in. It was like a little office there, and had a long table, and on the table was money, just a lot of, money that he had made, And he looked at me and said, say FAROUQ, you need anything? And now here I am. I didn't have no money in my pocket. I barely got up there. And I had this long walk to this train station, but I could not bring myself to tell Doc that I was in that kind of condition. So I said no, I'm okay, Doc. He said, you sure? If you need something, let me know now. Here, I was feeling like, wow, I can't take Doc's money. I can't even give Doc money. But that's a very beautiful point that you brought out, Professor. And I read your interview. I saw one of the interviews you did, and I thought it was very impressive. I want to thank you, for sharing that with the rest of the world.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you for calling, Senior Professor.
Yes, sir. You finally got me.
Assalamu alaikum, Senior Professor.
Wa alaikum salam. All right.
Hey, you know what I wanted to say, Professor, since Senior Professor called in, I have to say, Senior Professor Saifullah and Professor Jerry Denson, you two guys are probably, you guys probably are two of the most loyal Dr. Moses Powell disciples You know, I mean, just die hard, loyal. You know.
Yeah, brother. It's been a while. It's been a while, man. Definitely.
Yeah.
And I just really, I wish I could have had the opportunity to, before he passed, to write about his life, to do a book, you know.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize it was that close.
Yeah, we never know. Hey, brothers, I have to mention to both of you gentlemen because we talking about warriors and stuff like that. We had a warrior pass today. One of my favorite boxers, old Smoking Joe Frazier, with my favorite left hook. He did pass earlier today. And I just want to mention that because, he passed today, which was actually going to be yesterday because we're over midnight. But yeah, he did pass, and he was one of my favorite boxers. I mean, I loved Ali, but I was always a hook man. I like to throw hooks when I used to box. And Smoking Joe had the best left hook I ever seen. I love that man's left hook. But he did pass today.
Oh, man, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we lost a warrior today.
Yeah, we sure did.
All right, well, listen, Shabazz, what's our time? How are we looking on time?
We got 2 minutes and 13 seconds left.
All right, good. I'm gonna let Professor. Professor, I want to let the people know that you're gonna. We want to have you back for the second segment, what we're gonna call Bushido, and we want to talk about more or less the mentality of martial arts. Something you said that's definitely lacking, you know. And just if you can, we only got about 2 minutes. Spend about 30 seconds or a minute or so telling people about that, and then we'll go ahead and close up the show.
Well, what I would like to do is send you one of my articles, and I believe that would be a good groundwork for that. It's called The Essence of the Martial Arts.
Okay.
And I'm gonna send that to you so that you can have that. And I believe this article here it deals with the philosophical sayings of different martial arts masters and the type of attitude that we should have in general as martial artists. And I think it's very good. And like I say, it's one of the articles that I had written some years ago, but I think they can all come into play right now, you know, for what we're trying.
We got 60 seconds left. I want to thank you on behalf of Central
brother.
Friend. And it was an honor, and I look forward to interviewing you. And I'm going to interview you again, and also seeing you in the future, inshallah. And I'm going to pass it over to SHIHAN to close out the show.
Absolutely. I want to say thank you to Chief Professor, Senior Professor, Great Professor, Jerry Denson, for the interview. Jerry Denson, can you tell the people how to contact you, please?
Well, you can go to the Sensei Denson at yahoo.com.
Okay. All right. So that's Sensei Denson. This was brought to you today by Senjukai.com, your premier Sanuces dojo in Atlanta, Georgia. Gentlemen, I want to say thank you for a great show, and we can end it on this note, all right? Eye to eye.
Heart to heart.
Each one to the wall and back. Well, thank you, Professor, for the show. We look forward to hearing from you soon.
Good.